Boa tarde, passa um minuto da hora. Pelo que eu estou a ver, há aqui algumas pessoas que estão a entrar ainda, mas eu acho que podemos começar. Elisabete, quando quiseres.
Boa tarde a todos. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar hosted by the SFPE Portugal. Today we have the privilege of hearing from an esteemed expert in the fire protection, engineer and research, Leslie Marshall. Leslie Marshall serves as a director of SFPE Foundation, a global no-profit organization dedicated to the advancing research and education in the fire science. During today's session, Leslie will discuss the Foundation mission and highlight the past and ongoing research program. I won't take much of your time with this introduction, so without further, please join me in the welcome Leslie Marshall. After the presentation, there will be time for some questions, so feel free to note down any questions you may have in the chat, and this question can be in Portuguese or in English. Thank you. Leslie?
Thank you very much, Elisabeth. And thank you all for the invitation to present and be able to share a little bit more about your SFPE Foundation. So today we're going to cover, as Elisabeth mentioned, an overview of the foundation, and then I want to talk about some of our major initiatives, things that may be of interest to people on the call. And then also we'll talk about some funding opportunities. So I understand that there may be some folks on the call who are based at universities or in consulting roles where you may occasionally seek grant funding, and the foundation does have a few open opportunities right now, so I'll cover those today. In terms of our mission and vision, the SFPE Foundation was established by SFPE, the sort of SFPE headquarters, as you might think of it, in 1979. We've been around for a long time, but we've really increased our activities quite a bit in the last few years. So since 2021, we've really increased the amount of funding that we are giving out to support research projects that advance fire science and fire protection engineering. We've increased that funding by more than 300% since 2020. And that's all part of our new strategic plan, which is going to be active through the end of 2025. Our mission there is to enhance the scientific understanding of fire and its interaction with the social, natural, and built environments towards engineering a resilient, sustainable, fire-safe world for all. And we have 4 strategic goal areas that are part of that. You can find more details about those on our website. And when I'm done speaking, I'll also share a few links that you may find useful for follow-up. We are a separate organization from SFPE. So SFPE, the headquarters, and then SFPE Foundation is a separate charitable nonprofit organization, which allows us to solicit donations and things like that, and then function somewhat independently, but we also collaborate quite a bit with SFPE, of course. So as a separate organization, we have a separate board of governors. So the SFPE Foundation Board of Governors, you can see there on your screen. We have 17 members of that board. It's a full board. The members are based all over the world, including most recently in Europe. So you should see there on your screen in the orange box. Some of you may know Professor Margaret McNamee, who is based at Lund University in Sweden, is the first governor on the board who's based in Europe in quite some time. So we are very excited about that she's joined this year as of May 1st. And we also have folks not only in the United States, but in Canada, in Australia, and New Zealand who serve on the board, and they come from many different backgrounds. Some work for large consulting companies, some are based at universities, some are based at research institutes, and so on. So we'll try to have a good representation of skill sets and also professional sort of roles that folks fill. And we also have a number of folks representing different types of fire protection engineering, different areas of practice, and so on. We have 4 staff members, myself included, who are dedicated to the foundation, but we also receive a lot of support from SFPE as well on things like communications and marketing and back of house support and things like that. We are based all over the US. We have a remote work environment, so we are all based in different parts of the United States. Our resources at the foundation come from a wide range of sources. We have grants that we have solicited, so we apply for grants if we have a research project in mind that we would like to be able to support under the foundation's mission. We will apply for grants from organizations like in the US, we've been successful in getting grant funding from the federal government through FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency. We've run a couple of projects there. We are interested in being able to collaborate more outside of the US to pursue grant funding with other partners outside of the US. So feel free to reach out to me. We do partner with folks and participate as a partner, as a collaboration partner on grants. So if you have an interest in working with us, please do reach out. We also rely on corporate support or industry support, corporate donations and chapter donations. So SFP chapters like Portugal sometimes make donations to support the foundation's work. And then those are recognized at the annual conference each year. And then individuals, of course, can make donations as well. We also have a few different avenues for that. So we primarily rely on individual donations, external partnerships and grants to support our work. When we talk about the kind of work we do, I'm going to talk about it a little bit today, but in a big picture, most of what we try to do at the foundation is really to be able to fill some of the research gaps and knowledge gaps that have been identified by folks in the profession. So we're always looking for what are the areas where there are still research needs and where the foundation could be funding projects to fill in some of those research needs. We're always trying to connect back the research that we fund to the work that practicing fire engineers do. So folks who may be in a consulting environment or in other sort of professional environment, we always want to make connections between the research we fund and the practice of fire safety engineering. And we do that by making grants, we make awards, we make scholarships and fellowships. We also fund the development of educational content. So some of our projects right now are designed to develop training and things like that. As I mentioned, we have grown exponentially in the last few years. Since 2017, we have given out more than $900,000 US in research funding and awards and scholarships and fellowships all across the world. So we are a global foundation and we take a lot of pride in trying to reach as many people in as many parts of the world as we can. So you can see on the map here, just since 2017, the orange dots represent the students who've benefited from a very specific program at the foundation, student grant recipients since 2017. There are folks on other parts of the map who've received other forms of funding, but this gives you an idea of the geographic distribution of those students who receive funding. And I also thought perhaps for this audience useful to think about in Europe exactly who has benefited. So since 2017, out of that 900,000, that includes about 90,000 in funding to support students based at European universities, so student research projects primarily, and as well as folks who've received student awards or scholarships, as well as another 65,000 US in major research projects. So we have sort of two categories of research funding. There's major research projects, which tend to be 30,000 or more USD in terms of the size of the award, and then student research grants, which are just for students enrolled in undergraduate or graduate education programs. We also, on top of the money that is been on top of what you see there, we also provide additional support, particularly to students, but also to speakers who receive major research project funding. That includes support for travel and conference registration fees. So once we fund a project, when the project is completed and there's a report at the major research project level, we want to make sure that the results of that research reach the broader SFP community. So we will sometimes invite those researchers to present at an SFP conference. And that may be the annual conference, which is often in the US or in Canada, or it may be the European conference or the performance-based design conference, which some of you may have attended. So try to support folks to be able to present in those environments. And we've had a number of folks based in different countries in Europe who've benefited from that funding. I'll note that Portugal is not directly represented here, so hopefully we can change that. Hopefully there are some folks on the call who are interested in applying for research funding from the foundation. To get a more in-depth look at some of the folks who've benefited from research funding from the foundation, I would suggest that you check out our 2023 annual report. There's a short version and a long version, both of which are available on our website, and which you could scan the QR code there as well if you wanted to download them directly. So to talk about a few major initiatives at the foundation, we have a few broad initiatives right now that we are really active in and where there are opportunities to participate. We have the Grand Challenges Initiative, which we kicked off a couple of years ago. It is an effort to develop a 10-year plan for strategic cooperation in research, education, and outreach across 4 topic areas. So this is an effort that brings together partners from industry, from academia, all together to work on issues of shared significance, but not just to work on those issues, to identify and prioritize within those topics. So last year, after the first sort of 18 months of work, we published 4 white papers, 1 in each topic area. That's what you see on the screen there. So we published 1 in digitalization, AI, and cybersecurity, 1 in energy and infrastructure, 1 in climate change, and 1 in resilience and sustainability. And within each of those white papers, there's a ranking, so to speak, of the priority areas where we should be investing collectively in research and education or training over the next 10 years. And now we're in the phase of looking to implement the priorities that are laid out in those 4 white papers. We are still welcoming new partners at any time. There are different options to participate for industry or research institutes separate from universities. And so there are different ways to get involved there. And we do expect to have an in-person session for partners at the 2025 SFPE European Conference, which will be in Edinburgh in the UK in April next year. So we do look forward to being able to share more of that information, perhaps closer to you all next year. We have a number of GCI partners, as I mentioned, and a few of them are based in Europe. But again, I know universities that are based in Portugal. So if you're here from a university partner, we'd be very happy to talk more about getting you all involved as well. And then one of our GCI fellows is based at a university in Italy. So one of the big opportunities that we have active right now, that's part of the Grand Challenges Initiative, is we've just announced an applied research fellowship. This is open to PhD students and postdocs who are studying or doing their dissertations or doing work on either WUI fires, wildland urban interface fires, or on energy storage. The application deadline for that is June 24th. That is a fellowship worth $30,000 US. It covers an 8-month period. And it is an applied research fellowship. So the fellow receives the funding support, but they also receive mentorship from our GCI partner who's working with us on this, Jensen Hughes. So you'll be matched, the student or postdoc who is awarded the fellowship will be matched with the mentor at Jensen Hughes in that area and have additional opportunities to connect that relationship with the work that they're doing in their research. So it is an effort to bridge more of the need for applied research on the sort of consulting, practicing engineer side with the kind of really innovative research that's coming out of universities in some of these topic areas. You can read more about that on our website, and I'm happy to answer questions as well. One of the other areas that we've had ongoing for the last couple of years is an effort to advance wildland urban interface work for fire engineering. So trying to understand how fire engineers can contribute to addressing the problem of WUI fires and related hazards. So the foundation has been hosting a working group for the last 2 years whose goals are to sort of define that role. What is the scope of what it is that fire engineers could do to support addressing this hazard? as well as documenting what's the current research, tools, practices, identifying gaps, etc. Places where we need more guidance for the entire benefit of the entire fire protection engineering community, but also places where we may need more research or training, etc. So that group has been active for about a couple of years now, co-chaired by Albert Simeoni of WPI and Alex Marangidis of NIST. We've had over 100 volunteers from around the world, including we have sub-modules within this working group, each of which has leadership that's representing folks from around the world with WUI expertise. And I wanted to call out both Pascal Vaca and Elsa Pastor, who are not so far from who have been part of that effort and continue to be, as well as Domingos Villegas, who is probably familiar to some folks on the call, who has led the community wildland fire protection module within that group. We held a WUI virtual summit each of the last couple of years, and we're about to announce that we'll be funding a WUI research fellow in Spain. We've already identified that person to develop a white paper that's really summarizing all of the work that's been done to date. But we expect to carry forward more work in the WUI, and so if you are interested in being part of that, please feel free to contact me as well. I would say most of the work that's happening related to WUI and fire engineering at SFPE right now is happening through the foundation. So please do reach out if you'd like to be involved. I mentioned earlier that we also seek grants to support research projects. One of the areas that we've really been doing that in the US is with respect to receiving funding to bring fire engineering expertise to the fire service in the US context, particularly on WUI topics. So in the US context, as is true around the world, in many parts of the world, fire service are often asked to do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to addressing WUI fires and the challenges of preparing communities, hardening communities, and they're doing that without all of the necessary resources and tools. So these grants that we've received over the last few years have helped us develop a free resource, which you can access on the URL that's linked there, sfpe.org/WUI handbook. We have now published this free resource that brings together all the information that we could find from a fire protection engineering background and puts into the hands of the public. It's freely available, anyone can access it, and it's designed to help fire service folks when they're working with homeowners or property owners and making recommendations regarding mitigation. It's a tool that they can share with the homeowner. We've also developed a training for the fire service in the US context that's built on top of this tool. And then we have another grant to expand the tool. So if you go to the tool now, you'll see the handbook only includes structural hardening and defensible space. So sort of the immediate property or the immediate asset, parcel level sort of focus. The expanded version is going to include community level hardening guidance, as well as guidance related to community notification and evacuation, which I know are two topics that we get a lot folks asking for support on. So you can access those now, and when the expanded version comes out, we will share that as well. In terms of other research support and impact, so as I mentioned, we've been doing a lot more funding in the last few years. In that time, we've published 8 major reports and guides coming out of those major research projects that we funded. The various projects that have benefited from funding across the board have garnered, more than 1,200 citations in peer-reviewed journals. We've also produced 11 open access webinars out of those research projects, and I'll talk more about that in a second. As I mentioned before, we've been awarded and managed 3 large grants. To give you an idea of the kind of major research projects we fund, so again, these are projects that are $30,000 and above. In 2022 and 2023, the big projects we had ongoing were the ones you see on your screen here. One was focused on a risk and performance assessment framework for sustainable and fire resilient buildings that was led by a team from the US and Sweden. And then we also did a BIM integration project that was led by a team out of the US. Both of those projects, the final reports are now published. The BIM project also includes a user guide as well. So those are both available on our website. They're both also available as webinars where you can access for free a 1-hour webinar presented by the research teams that gives an overview of the findings of their project. Right now, we have 3 active major research projects. All 3 of these projects were identified as priority areas for research funding as part of the Grand Challenges Initiative white paper. So going back to those 4 white papers I mentioned, each of these projects was a priority in those white papers. And so we are funding those as part of our commitment to carrying on the work of the GCI. The projects that you see here on the screen, we are funding currently a project related to lithium-ion battery energy storage system fires and the health and environmental impacts of those. We're funding a project on fire testing of resilient and sustainable building materials, and a project on the interface between digital buildings and fire service operations. One of those projects with Dr. Jamie McAllister is based in the US, one with Dr. Richard Walls is based in South Africa, and one with Dr. Niels Johansson is based in Sweden. So we do, as I said, fund projects all over the world. For those of you who may know students who are seeking funding for their research projects, we have a program, the Student Research Grant Program, where we award about 8 $5,000 US projects each year. You can see the 2023 winners on your screen here. The next cycle of applications is due October 1st. We had a previous cycle that was due in March, and we'll be announcing the winners of that shortly. But in October 1, there's also an opportunity to apply again. These are open to any undergraduate or graduate student who is researching fire protection or fire safety and engineering topics. We evaluate them on a range of factors, and then we make the awards. We typically do 2 rounds each year of awards, so typically in March and October annually. And then, like you can see here, the next cycle being due October 1st, those students will be notified in November as to the whether or not they've received the award. One other thing I want to highlight about what we try to do at the foundation is we really put a lot of attention to after a project has been awarded and we've provided the funding support, we don't want to end our support there. We really do want to make sure that once the project is complete, that we are doing as much as we can to bring awareness of the results to the broader SFPE community. We want folks to know about the findings from the research and to be able to share those back with the SFPE community as much as possible. So we do a number of things to that end. Sometimes we do press releases, we do publish research reports on our website. We try to map those results back to show how they're filling in different gaps that have been identified in SFPE's research roadmap. We often will invite particular researchers to submit articles to be featured in FPE magazine. We do these open access research presentations through our Research in Fire Engineering webinar series. We do research presentations to chapters. So today you're hearing from me sort of about the foundation, but we also do presentations for chapters where we can provide a list of available technical presentations, and your chapter can select, what are the sort of 2 or 3 topics that you're most interested in, and then we can help coordinate to provide that technical content from the researcher directly, and it gives them an opportunity to reach a wider audience as well. And you can see there are a number of other publications there on the screen that we also will encourage a publication of research reports or summaries in. And then we do also support research presentations at a variety of industry conferences. As I mentioned, the webinar series, one of the things that the foundation does to try and make sure that the research that we fund reaches as wide an audience as possible is that we support, with the support of our donors, we're able to provide an open access research and fire engineering webinar series. This is freely available. You do not have to be an SFPE member, although it is great if you are, and of course you can access them. They're available through our website and through SFPE's learning management platform. But you just have to create a login and then you can view these. You can also earn professional development hour credits for viewing these. There are a number of recordings available on demand now. You can see a few of the topics listed there on the slide. These feature projects that have been funded by the foundation or by academic leadership council members. So we have another program at the foundation where we have the ALC, or the Academic Leadership Council, which has representation from any academic program anywhere in the world that has a sort of fire engineering, fire safety engineering focus. They're invited to have a representative, usually the department head, participate in the ALC. And so we also invite those folks to participate in presenting in the research series as we have availability. And then finally, in this section, wanted to flag our Research Impact Explorer. So if you have not been to our website recently, there's now a drop down under the Research tab for the Impact Explorer. So you can actually go through and see listing by author, journal, title of all of the publications that have come out in the last few years that have been supported in part by foundation funding. And then you can also sort those by, area of the research roadmap, by journal of publication, by the type of funding that supported the project, and get a sense for the different papers that have all benefited from foundation funding, and perhaps see folks that you know represented there as well. And then finally, last section that I wanted to cover is our awards and scholarships. So we, at the foundation, we facilitate 5 major awards every year. Typically, the application deadline is around April 1st. This year, we'll be announcing the winners in late July, but we have 5 awards. One is the Guy's Medal, which may be familiar to you all. It's considered the sort of preeminent award for contributions to the advancements of the science and technology of fire protection and engineering globally. It's a very prestigious award, and we're very honored to be able to administer that. Last year, Professor Bart Merci of Ghent University received that award. We also support the Jack Bono Award for Engineering and Communication, which recognizes the authors of the best article in the prior year's Fire Technology Journal. And then we have 3 student-focused awards that we administer each year. The Prue Scholar Award, which is specifically for folks doing research in human behavior. The Maurer Global Scholar Award, which is for students who are supported from emerging nations and doing fire safety science and engineering. And then we have the Student Scholar Award, which is open to students, high-performing students from anywhere in the world, who've been outstanding members of the community and doing excellent research and have a strong record of scholarship. So you can see the 2 students there on the left who received that award last year. Zhu Junan and Pascal Vaca were the recipients last year. And so then the last slide is about chapter engagement and contact information. I want to thank you all for your support in inviting me here and encourage you all to get involved. There are a number of ways. So you can sign up for our monthly e-news brief. If you're on our website, there's a link there to be able to sign up for that. You can receive emails monthly, which contain updates on any available funding, new reports, things like that. I encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn if you don't already. We are posting on LinkedIn multiple times a week and always keeping folks updated there. Please do share our award, scholarship, and grant opportunities with your networks. We always want to reach as many people as we can. So I encourage you all to share those. And then you can watch our free on-demand webinars. You can join us in volunteering in one of the initiatives that I talked about today. And we also encourage, if your chapter makes a donation, encourage you to send us photos of your chapter, and we will use those to recognize you all at the annual conference. There are a number of ways to donate, as I mentioned before. You can donate to support our work. You can donate as a chapter. You can donate as an individual. You can donate as a company. There are many different ways to get involved, but all of that support goes towards the types of programs that I've talked about today. And if you have questions and want to reach out, I can be reached at foundation@sfpe.org. And so with that, Elisabeth, should we move perhaps to the Q&A?
Well, thank you, Leslie, for the presentation. I'm sure that everyone here appreciated the comprehensive overview of the mission and the research program of the SFPE Foundation. Now I would like to open the floor for questions. This is a great opportunity to clarify any doubts. And please feel free to type your question in the chat. It can be in Portuguese or in English. I will translate. So I'll do the first question to begin. Can you please provide more information how to apply, what are the requirements, the application process, and the deadline for if someone wants to apply for a scholarship, for example?
Sure. So it's if it's a scholarship or a grant, it's a little different. So we have the awards every year, which include the scholarships. Those are almost always going to be due April 1st, beginning of April. So you can always sort of be looking for that. We start announcing those typically in February. We'll announce that it's open. So the way you would, if you're interested in a scholarship or an award, then you would look out for that sort of portal to be announced in about February, and applications are due typically April 1. We link to those applications on our website. It's a very straightforward process for the awards. We try to make it as easy as possible for folks to apply. For the student research grants, those are twice per year. Again, on our website, there's a page that explains everything that you need to include in your application, what the requirements are, et cetera, what eligibility is required, and there's a portal that it links to for you to apply. Student research grants, which are the $5,000 grants, those are going to be March and October every year. So we will typically announce that they're open about a month or two beforehand, but you can sort of count on that. So if you're planning ahead for next year, you can sort of count on there'll be an opportunity in March and October. And for the major research grants, the ones that are 30,000 and above, those are, as I saw in the chat, there's a question. Those are not restricted to universities. They are open to consulting companies as well. So if you remember to the slide where I said we had a project on building information modeling, the BIM project, that's actually a private consulting company that ran that project. So they are open to consultants, they're open to academics. We don't have any restrictions on them in that way for the major research projects. Those are not as predictable in terms of the call, because the board will agree on an RFP, a request for proposals, and then we'll post it. We try to give at least 4 weeks, sometimes as much as 6 or 8 weeks for responses once we announce it. When we announce, we always announce through our monthly newsletter. We typically do an email to all the folks who are in the SFPE database. So if you're an SFPE member, I mentioned signing up for that monthly news brief because we always put it in there. We also always announce those on LinkedIn. So even if you just follow us on LinkedIn, we always announce those there, and we try to give as much repeated notice of those as possible. But those will vary in terms of the time.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have here 2 questions. One is all the dissemination documents and online contents are in English. If there is the intention to dissemination in the other language to reach more countries, or just everything is in English?
At this time, everything is in English. But we do not currently have the resources to support translation into other languages at this time. But I do know that this is an ongoing sort of question that's been raised also with respect to SFPE materials, not just the foundations. And so I would say that if you feel strongly about making materials available in more languages, that speaking to your chapter leadership about that so that they can represent those perspectives when they're participating, for example, at the SFPE Europe board level or on the SFPE board level, that would be a great way to communicate that. At this time, though, at the foundation, we do not have them available we do not currently intend to make them available in other languages.
And I think another question I have here, if the SFPE Foundation can fund research projects if they aren't related with the academy or university he said so. And if it's a private company, there are always related with the academy, university, or not.
Right, it does not have to be a university, but it depends on the project. But typically those large research projects are open to private companies and to academics based at universities.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you have read it will be possible to get the presentation Leslie gave us this afternoon. They are asking if it's a SFPE Portugal can send the presentation that you have done.
I am happy for you to send out the PDF of the slides. That would be great to share.
Okay. Well, I have another question. If there is no one. What are the foundation futures plan? If there is, because you saw it in here, but with the new technologies that arrive with everything with this, we are present here in sustainability. What are the plans that the foundation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually think this kind of gets at how you can think about the difference between sort of SFPE and SFPE Foundation, which is that the foundation's mission, core to our mission and our strategic sort of goals, we're thinking about innovation. We're thinking about the emerging challenges, the emerging problems, what's coming next, right? And so the foundation is really focused on funding and supporting the research, the guidance that we need in those sort of future-oriented challenges, many of which are already here. I think you're getting at this, right? Those, we call them future problems, but thinking about artificial intelligence and cybersecurity and how it affects our work, thinking about new energy technologies and how those impact the work that you're doing when you design fire protection systems for a building that has PV panels or solar panels now, right? That's all here now. And so the foundation, I think, has really been focused on funding projects that are really in that forward-looking sort of perspective. And then as we gather more of that research and we have sort of more established knowledge, being able to turn that over with our relationship with SFPE to sort of more settled guidance. You know, when you think about SFPE is putting out, you know, the guidance in different areas, guidance for tall buildings, the handbook, things like that. To be able to produce those, we need to be able to fund the research that is then going to provide the knowledge for those. So I see the foundation as being that sort of vehicle for being able to provide the support to produce that information that then comes out of SFPE at a later date. But that's the whole vision with the GCI, with the Grand Challenges Initiative, is to figure out from folks who are practicing fire engineers, what are the challenges that you're facing that you expect to be bigger and bigger challenges down the road? And how can we support that? Do you need tools? Do you need funding to do research? Do you need guidance documents? Do you need, you know, what are the things that you need? And so we're always trying to get that feedback from the community and be able to provide where we can tools to support that. I would say right now, we have done a good job of understanding where those areas of need are. We are trying to get more resources to support the work. So fundraising right now is a big challenge because a lot of those problems do take significant investment. And that's why I would say our approach with the foundation has been, how can we collaborate and be a partner with the folks who are doing the work? Because at the foundation, we can solicit funding. We can do a great job of public education and dissemination of information because we have this global SFPE network and we have access to those things. But, you know, we don't have our own lab at the foundation. We're not doing fire testing. We need to partner with a university or someone who does have that sort of facilities, right? We need to partner with the researchers who are actually doing the work. And so that's why we have that vision with the GCI of bringing everyone together and identifying who's the best, you know, partner to take on particular parts and how can we get the resources to folks. And then once we have the information, how do we get it back to the folks who are practicing on the ground? So I think that's the way that we think about it moving forward.
Thank you. Well, there is no more questions. I don't know if you want to say anything more or...
Yeah. Also, one last thing, if it's all right, which is about on that last question. I would say that it's been really impressive, the number of applications that we're seeing right now from student researchers through those different grant programs that I talked about. There are a tremendous number of really well thought out, well-defined research projects that we're seeing from students, where students have research proposals at the graduate and undergraduate level that are incredibly strong, and they are really innovative. They're path-breaking. They're doing research on sort of those what's coming next, right? And I think we've put a lot of resources into supporting those students, and that's something that I think we'll be continuing to do to sort of grow the numbers of folks who are coming into the profession, whether they're going to stay in academia or become practicing engineers who've done research in these new topics. And so that's something I think that I would add to what I'd said previously. But I'll also say, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm easy to find. People are welcome to connect with me and send me an email, and I'd love to hear from you. So, and again, thank you for having me.
Thank you for the presentation, to be here in the name of SFPE Portugal. Well, there is no more question. Well, thank you. We stop here, and thank you everyone to be here and we see you in the next time. And I hope you have more candidates to innovation in the area of the fire safety that is necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.